Hello, AP World History students. This is your lesson for Friday, March 20th. I am recording it on a very rainy Thursday morning. My backyard has like big puddles everywhere. We even had our electricity kind of flickering in and out earlier this morning. So I waited to start recording this until things looked a little bit more normal outside. Okay, so I want to start today's lesson by reminding you of some really important deadlines that are fast approaching. The work that I posted for you to do back on Wednesday needs to be received by me from you by 8 a.m. On Friday. So if you are watching this video and you have not turned that work in yet, it is very important that you stop right now and go back and do Wednesday's assignment. I need that as soon as possible so that I can mark you present for class on Wednesday. This work that you are doing for today to get credit for Friday the 20th needs to be received by me by certain deadlines too. So what I've decided to do is actually create two different assignments for today, one that I can get from you really quickly and then one that you can have a little bit more time on. The quick assignment is a Google form of 7 questions that you will answer after listening to my lecture and taking notes on it. The Google form will be given to you in locked mode, so you won't be able to go back and forth between the Google form and this video. You'll need to take notes during this lecture and use those notes to help you answer those questions. When you submit that Google form, I will mark you present for class on Friday, March 20th. The other assignment you have is to finish up the CCOT graphic organizer that we started on Wednesday, doing the Ho Chi Minh and Nelson Mandela columns. And there's also a secondary Google form or Google document that I'm calling argumentation. And you will actually pull the ideas that you have gathered from all 4 of the nationalist leaders this week, and you will kind of treat it like an essay, but not actually write an essay. You're just going to do some of the same skills. So that work, that second item, the CCOT and argumentation practice, that I want to get from you by Sunday at 8 p.m. For its homework deadline. Keep in mind that our current D-Day is ending today, Friday the 20th. Any work that I receive by 8 p.m. tonight, I will grade. But I don't really know what the future will hold for like a new D-Day, because if we continue virtual learning, D-Days just really aren't going to work. So I will update you on that, but you need to make sure that you are taking care of everything from this week and from school since January, over the course of this weekend by the deadlines I've given you, because I don't want to wait around on things forever. And our schooling status is so up in the air. So I need to make sure that you guys are giving me your work in a timely manner so I can keep you going and learning new stuff. Okay. I'll review those deadlines at the end of this presentation for you again, but it's really important that you stick to them. So what I want to do first is I want to remind you of the 3 different patterns of decolonization that we studied last class period, the last video. You have incomplete decolonization, and usually that means that the new government is very reliant on foreign powers to prop it up. It also means that the economy of this newly independent state is very reliant on foreign economies because the new economy struggles to industrialize. Our second broad pattern of decolonization is what we refer to as independence through armed struggle. That means a revolutionary war has to be fought by the indigenous inhabitants of that country to secure their independence from their imperial colonizer. Third would be negotiated independence. This is where the imperial power realizes that they no longer have the strength to maintain the colony, and so they negotiate the release of that colony from imperial rule, and then they leave that colony to its own devices to figure out what its new government is going to look like and what its future will hold. All 3 of these instances lead to newly independent states that we would not consider very stable. These are countries that even to today in 2020 are probably struggling to compete in the global economy and probably struggling to create governments that are stable and reliable. A government might call itself democratic, but it might feature illegitimate elections or military enforcement of the government instead of people freely participating in it. So any of these three forms of decolonization have resulted in countries that might struggle even to today. I wanted to give you a slide that listed some causes of decolonization in a really neat way. I know we've talked about the historical context of World War II already, and that decolonization is happening at the same time as the Cold War, but I wanted to show you these four causes of decolonization. First, the high cost of World War II made continuing imperialism impossible for most governments. Second, the loss of moral authority. In other words, we see that social Darwinism has been reversed, and that the imperial powers can no longer say, well, we're civilizing these colonial subjects, because instead they just look like repressive rulers. We also see that Enlightenment ideas spread all over the planet. Often colonial subjects would send their sons to receive education in the Western world. And so those young men bring back the ideas of the Enlightenment. They call out the hypocrisy of imperial powers, and then they start to apply Enlightenment ideas to their nationalist movements for independence in their countries. Additionally, because of World War II, imperialism just seems amoral. The evil empires of Nazi Germany, Imperial Japan, even fascist Italy, start to look a lot more similar to the global empires held by imperial countries, whether that be Great Britain or France or the United States. And so the idea becomes, well, if that was so bad, if Hitler was so bad, isn't it bad for Britain to control India? Things like that, okay? So we've got these neat and tidy causes for decolonization. Should you ever need to, write an essay or an SAQ, a long essay question that asks you about what led to decolonization. So I love this map. It shows us the dates in which countries across Africa and Asia were decolonized, and the colors reflect who the imperial power was before decolonization. You will notice that almost all of the dates visible on this map fall after World War II. I want you to think about what these countries are like today. You might notice that they're still struggling countries today. Sometimes we might refer to them as third world countries. We'll actually define what that really means after spring break when we dive into the Cold War. But a lot of these countries are developing politically and economically even today. And really, when you think about it, they haven't existed as independent countries for very long. So it makes sense that they need time to establish themselves. And that is not going to be an easy process to do when so much of the rest of the world has already industrialized and they are struggling to catch up with that. Okay, so remember to be taking notes of my lecture. I do have a Google form that you are going to fill out at the end of the lecture to get credit for attendance today. So the first thing I want you to do is review your notes about the Mau Mau revolt or Mau Mau rebellion against British rule in Kenya. There is one question on that Google form about this revolt. So go ahead and review it. Pause this video now if you need to. You can go back to the Google slides from Wednesday. I've linked a couple of articles about the Mau Mau there. And if you never read them on Wednesday, you better read them now before this Google form today. So I want to dig in deeper today into individual examples of decolonization across Africa. Last class period, we looked at India and we looked at Vietnam, we looked at Kenya. We'll talk more about Asia and what happens in Asia after spring break. But today I really want to focus on Africa. Thabiso is an author, and this is a quote from his famous book. He wrote, "Once upon a time, they came from Europe yielding swords. They robbed, raped, conquered Africa, and gave us the 10 Commandments." So if you take that quote and you think about it in the context of the 19th century and imperialism, sounds like social Darwinism, right? The Europeans are going to come in and take over. They're going to exploit their colonies for raw materials, but then they're also going to Christianize and civilize these non-European groups that they feel are inferior. So Thabiso was actually born in 1960. And when he was just a teenager around your age, he participated in the 1976 Soweto uprising. He was actually exiled from his country in Africa because of that uprising, and he spent time living in West Germany. While he was there, oh, there's a bug flying around. While he was there, he went to school at Munster University, and he studied biochemistry and dental technology. He then went on to write this book about his experiences as an African living through decolonization. What we really want to notice here is this idea that African nationalists are using ideals of the Enlightenment to call out the hypocrisy of European colonizers. They are turning social Darwinism on its head. Basically, what I see in this quote and Dabisu's life is exactly what we just outlined as the causes of decolonization. I'm going to go ahead and pause the video right here to keep my videos in small chunks. Hopefully that will allow them to upload quicker. So come back for part 2 in just a second.